beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe. There is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing. From Chief of Operations to all governments, militaries, and citizens of Earth. Subject: the cosmic history of the Zulu alien civilization. This is an official SSP Alliance release. To combat counterintelligence campaigns against the secret space program topic, we are back to release again a series of briefings straight from our highest-ranking officers, without intermediaries. We strongly recommend that you disregard information regarding the secret space program that is not coming directly from us. Some of the disclosures we have brought forward have been compromised. Fake secret space program veterans, super soldier imposters, and ET contactees have released considerable misinformation. To keep humanity from fighting for freedom with a false sense of security, they are peddling the narrative that the Mars colonies, Moon, and Antarctica bases have been liberated from the gray alien and reptilian forces. Good was approached a year ago and threatened by members of the contactee and SSP community. He was told that he needed to change his intel updates to reflect what the rest of the groups were reporting. He was told that if he didn't, he would be labeled as compromised, and the group would just confirm one another's stories and take over the narrative anyway. Good has also been embroiled in 2 different federal civil suits against individuals and groups who conspired to take his life story and testimony away from him and to discredit and blacklist him, giving them the ability to control the narrative and to continue to make money from Good's testimony. Good was forced to take extreme measures through the courts and said what he needed to in his deposition to secure his own life story as his intellectual property, to protect it from the opportunists within the ufology and disclosure community. This was done with the full support of the SSP Alliance, who have been troubled by the collapse of the disclosure community and the Earth Alliance. We will now brief you on the history of one of the most influential extraterrestrial groups within our local stellar neighborhood. The Zulu is a higher echelon, 5th density consciousness civilization that has been around our local stellar neighborhood, over 50 star systems, for over 2 billion years, living and thriving for millions of years in the interior of their home planet that their ancient culture had named Eos. They are identified as having African features, for our reference on Earth, and are typically over 7 to 8 feet tall. They are a shamanic civilization that is managed mostly by their female elders and have a lifespan of thousands of Earth years due to the frequency of their star and the unique conditions of their planet. The Aosians were always extremely psychic, with what we would consider magical manifestation abilities. They realized that the universe itself seemed to be the manifestation of the imagination of a being they couldn't yet fathom, and were teeming with other civilizations that were mostly of a much lower consciousness level. Because of this understanding, they never developed religions based on gods, heaven, or hell. Instead, they developed their natural abilities over time, to where they were projecting their consciousness to other planets, to observe the civilizations where they witnessed atrocities and wars playing out. Their culture became engrossed in their remote viewings of other cultures, and over time, it began to influence their mass consciousness in an unexpected way. Due to their incredible manifestation abilities, they nearly brought about their own demise. They began to encounter strange and powerful creatures in their astral travels that then began to influence the Aosians through their dreams, prayers, and meditations. Before long, their people were having violent encounters with these creatures in physical form before they would disappear into thin air. As they psychically investigated this new threat, they began to discuss their theories and findings with one another, and came to a general agreement that these beings were from a star system that they had been unaware of in their psychic astronomical studies. They began to reach out to that star system and remotely view their new enemy. They were shocked to see an extremely advanced civilization that had the ability to psychically camouflage itself from discovery by most other advanced civilizations. Once the Aosians had penetrated the veil of this star system, they were surprised to see the buildup of a vast armada that was likely headed toward their planet. The Aosians are a peaceful race that can come together and focus their mass consciousness to defend themselves by psychically affecting their enemies' minds, throwing the most technically advanced attackers into a state of confusion or causing them to turn their weapons on themselves. They had now met their match with this new group of invaders who seemed to be their equal psychically, but had technology and weapons that were never a part of the Aosians' evolution. For the first time, leaving them at a perceived disadvantage. They got stuck in a cycle of conflict for millions of years with this new enemy. That caused a shift in their mass consciousness as their civilization moved to a defensive posture. In the meantime, other civilizations in our local stellar neighborhood began to be invaded by the same civilization the Aosians were unable to defeat. The Aosian civilization was at near collapse when they were contacted by another extremely advanced civilization in our local stellar neighborhood. This civilization, who would later become known as the Blue Avians, and we will cover on a later report, was so advanced that it had created an extremely sophisticated network of moon-sized stations that they placed in star systems around our local stellar neighborhood that used the power of the cosmic web to prevent intrusion of other alien races, who they considered genetic farmer races that interfere with the natural development of civilizations for their own selfish agendas. The Blue Avians informed the Aosians that the enemy civilization that was wreaking havoc inside the local stellar neighborhood was impossible to defeat via physical or psychic warfare, even for them. They described how there had never been a star in the location from where their new enemies came, and that the Aosians were the key to putting the local stellar neighborhood back into balance. What the Aosians didn't realize is that this unstoppable enemy was a creation, an egregore manifestation, from their very own mass consciousness. They were so incredibly and unknowingly powerful that they had manifested the biggest threat that the inhabitants of the local stellar neighborhood had ever encountered prior to the protective network being created. While most civilizations were manifesting gods, devils, heaven, and hell, the Aosians were manifesting their own demons, but on a level that affected more than just their own civilization. It took them thousands of years to eradicate these beings from their mass consciousness and the shared reality of their cosmic neighbors. This was a major setback to the proud race of Aosians, who had preached oneness and taught shamanism to their stellar neighbors for eons, and had developed a reputation as an extremely spiritually advanced culture. They were said to have even had a major impact on the evolution of the race that later became known as the Blue Avians. The Aosians eventually were able to heal and learn from their near demise, and began to focus their co-creative abilities more and more, to a point that they began developing ascended abilities, able to teleport and, in some cases, levitate and fly. This time was an incredible renaissance for their civilization, as they became more and more connected to the cosmos, what they considered the mind of the Creator. It is through this cosmic connection that they learned that their own stellar cycle was coming to the end of a major cycle. Their star resonates at a much different frequency than ours does, it creates a lot more radiation, and began to have more frequent outbursts as it changed frequencies during its own life cycle. Their stellar activity became so intense that their culture was pushed to the interior of their planet, where they have thrived until this day. When they found the inner caverns of their planet, they realized why their culture had advanced so quickly and had developed such a powerful ability to manifest. Their planet was like a giant geode. Its interior had vast mountains made of a purple crystal. The mountains seemed to be lit from the inside and radiated light and frequency that caused the Aosians to develop at an even more accelerated rate. The energy that lit the mountains and cavernous valleys of their planet's interior came from the core of the planet. It was a fast-rotating sphere of highly compressed molten liquid crystalline material that acted as a central sun that had an incredibly positive effect on living organisms and their consciousness. Even the plants and animals that had found their way down into this vast and magical ecosystem had evolved quite a bit differently than their counterparts on the surface of the planet. Over eons of time, the Aeosians developed into the most psychically and spiritually developed civilizations within our local stellar neighborhood and beyond. They organized trade and commerce in our local stellar neighborhood and encouraged the development of civilizations in their neighboring star systems. Everything changed when the pre-Adamite civilization, formerly from Mars, destroyed the protective grid that the Blue Avians had built nearly 2 billion years prior. The local stellar neighborhood was immediately invaded and corrupted by the genetic farmer races, so the Aeosians had no choice but to isolate themselves and try to work with various beings, psychically and telepathically, to encourage them to take their power back after bartering it away to the genetic farmer races. The only star system that was not influenced or taken over by these genetic farmer races, which included the Orion Group and Andromeda Syndicate, belonged to the Aeosians. The genetic farmer races had sent armada after armada to invade the Aeosian system, but every attack ended with the armada's complete destruction, with no indication of how they were defeated. The genetic farmer races decided to isolate the Aeosians as much as possible and continue with their agendas, focusing their efforts on corrupting the super federations, which enforce cosmic laws in each galaxy, to push forward with assisting their AI god to infiltrate every advanced civilization. Currently, we see that the genetic farmer races have been mostly defeated and isolated within the Andromeda and Milky Way galaxies. As Corey Good had reported previously, our star system is one of the last strongholds for the Orion Group and their allies, who have amassed their armadas within our solar system. The largest of the ships in these armadas have dipped down into the upper atmospheres of the gas giants they were orbiting, to become harder to detect after a few encounters with the former GGLN battlecruiser, the Wandering Star, as it liberated a couple of major colonies on Mars, evacuating their entire populations to another star system controlled by the Mayan Group, as we reported before. As we get closer to the solar micronova event, we will see the activation of the Lee line grids that correlate with increased solar activity. We have the intel that we would see portals opening randomly across the planet, portals that lead to other locations in the cosmos. Emmy, one of the leaders of the Zulu, told us that on each continent, the Aeosians had worked with shamans to astrally travel through these portal systems and learn where they go, and to keep detailed records and maps. Emmy said that these maps and records had been passed down in secret sects of shamans for thousands of years, and that when these portals open, they will be instrumental in knowing how to navigate them. Some of the portals that open lead to the center of stars, to ocean-covered planets, and may even open thousands of feet in the air above some planets, making them quite dangerous to travel through physically without the use of these maps. Leading up to the solar flash, we will see more and more people disappear into these portals, leaving the rest of the world mystified or in angry denial of the process the solar system is going through. Many star seeds, aliens incarnated here as humans, will be pulled to go to the regions where these portals will open, to go back to their home planet. During this time, there will also be an increasing number of UFOs reported, along with strange disappearances and deaths that investigators will believe to be hostile alien acts. Nothing could be further from the truth. Alien groups are coming back to pick up their operatives on our planet prior to the solar event. In some cases, the souls leave their human bodies and rejoin their own bodies on light ships that have been sent to retrieve them. The leaders of Earth will use these events to pump even more fear into the world's population to make it easier to control them, a plan that eventually backfires as each population begins to stand up against the increasing tyranny. This is where humanity comes in. We must liberate our planet and overthrow the death cults that fell under the influence of the Orion Group and the transhumanist agenda of their AI god. The starseeds being removed is not a mass event, where all starseeds are removed at once. Some stay through the solar event and keep incarnating here. There are certain groups that are coming to Earth to remove their operatives. There are hundreds of millions of starseeds on this planet right now, only a small fraction of those will be removed. This is not a situation where human refugees are going to be removed from the planet en masse. These are alien operatives who incarnated on this planet to observe or guide the civilization leading up to the solar event. Those who signed soul contracts to incarnate on this planet for various missions are not a part of this starseed evacuation. This is not a rapture event, but a series of random portal openings and apparent abduction events, or deaths believed to be related to abduction events. The vast majority of those on the planet now will be here for the solar event and will be the same people that will be a part of building a new future for humanity as it explores the fourth density consciousness. Be patient, be strong. We are in this together.
This is Corey Good, and this has been an official Secret Space Program Alliance update.
For more updates, go to ascensionworks.tv.